We'll bring our planning board meeting to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Chairman, you should announce
The date, that's what I was gonna do. So, I just figured I'd get the formalities out of the way. Alright, today is Tuesday, October 24th, 7 p.m. Present tonight is Adam Somerville, Chairman, Brittany Griffin, Treasurer,
Elaine Bergeron, co-chair.
Bob Kimball, member.
Alright. First tonight we have Tyler from the MBTA Communities Project with a presentation.
All right.
This is all yours, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So, hello, everyone. I met most of you last time, but again, I'm Tyler Marin from Barrett Planning Group, and my job here is to help the town of Whitman figure out how it can comply with this MBTA Communities Law. So, last time I gave a much more detailed presentation on like the background of the law, the details. I won't go into as much of that tonight because we'd be here forever. You do have those slides. And you'll have these slides if you don't have them already. So since that time, we got some feedback from the board that night. We got some feedback from various staff and other members of the community on potential, sites to locate this district. And we modeled a couple of potential scenarios and returned a memo to the town a few weeks ago. Hopefully you have a chance to read it, but if not, I will be summarizing it this evening.
Alright.
So,
Do I should hit the light a little bit, or everybody see alright?
up to your
Okay.
comfort. I don't need to hear. Let's do this part. Alright. So, that's the opposite of how it should be. That's the presenter view. That is the view. Anyway. Okay, there we go. Alright, so I will very quickly go over the basic requirements of what the town is being asked to do under this law. But then move right into just going through the memo findings, talking a bit about what we modeled and why. You'll have the opportunity to ask questions of me. There's some remaining questions that I'd like to ask of you, and then we will talk about what comes next and what the rest of this project is going to look like in the meantime. So just a refresher on what this even is. Basically, the MBTA Communities Law requires that every town and city in the Commonwealth served by MBTA, and that includes those with stations and those that are adjacent to communities with stations, needs to adopt a zoning district that allows multifamily development by right, which is without the need for a discretionary permit, like a special permit. And then there's various sticks put in the law for those who don't comply. You become ineligible or at least less competitive for various state grants. So that is what we're doing. And so in order to determine compliance, the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities, formerly known as DHCD, also called HLC, people still call it both, developed these formulas to determine what specifically each town's specific numerical requirements will be to determine whether or not they're complying with this law and their district is big enough. So, without going into what the formulas actually are, for Whitman, you have a commuter rail station, so there's separate formulas that apply whether you have a station or whether you're adjacent, but you have a station. So the minimum district size, going a little out of order here, the total size of the district has to be at least 37 acres. It can be bigger, but it can't be smaller. The unit capacity of that district is 898, about 900. So essentially what that means is the state's not necessarily looking to see that many units produced. They're not going to check up if that number ever gets hit. It's just the zoning has to allow that many in theory based on the Excel model they've developed to model a potential output. So when I described the scenarios I modeled, I was working in that exact model that they'll use to determine compliance, inputting the specific parcels that we're looking at in each of these locations that I'll show you in a minute, and using draft, proposed dimensional regulations, and it does all kinds of math and guesses how many units might come out of such a district, and the state's going to be looking for that number to be 898 or greater.
Quick question,
Yes,
does the acreage include the roads or not?
it does. So that is just area in the most basic definition. You're right to ask because there's a lot of definitional confusion in this law. But when we're talking 37 acres, that's just basic geometry. Look at the perimeter. And then the 15 units per acre, that's a number maybe you've heard in relation to this law, that's the level of density they need you to hit. So you need to hit all three, and it's possible to hit some without hitting all. So you need that certain number of units, the district has to be a certain size, and then when all is said and done, it has to average out to 15 units per acre. The way they calculate density is not quite so simple as just looking at the acreage. That's a slightly more complicated formula, but we have done those calculations in the first slideshow. I'm going to do it a bit more. If you want to ask me more about it, I can go into it more, but it's not a super intuitive topic. But roughly speaking, out of those 37 acres, you have to average out at least 15 units. And for a community with a station within its borders, there's an additional requirement that you have to put a certain percentage of it within a half-mile radius of the station. So for Whitman, that is 20% of the district. So about 7.4 acres of it has to be within that radius. The rest can be wherever, up to the town. So the idea here is, and the reason it's called MTA communities, they're thinking, transit-oriented development, put housing near where public transportation is available, is the thought behind it. So they're like, well, if you have a station, you ought to be putting some of this district closer. So these are the basic parameters that we're trying to meet with all this modeling. So this is a zoomed out map of Old Town. These are the different areas modeled. So there's two scenarios, and I get up in point. So there's two basic scenarios, and they're sort of different approaches. So just so you know, these are not the two end-all be-alls that you have to pick from. These are just two different approaches, and we can modify either, change it up. This is just to give you an idea of, like I said, approaches we can take. So one is a more spread-out approach. You can have, it doesn't all have to be contiguous, so you can have a few little sub-districts around. So that's what these three little colored areas are. That's one scenario where we spread it out more into other sites. We'll explain more about why we chose these sites later. And then the other scenario is, okay, what if we just all squish it all together into a single contiguous area and put it right by the train station. So this extending along South Ave in the pink is that. So I look at the water over here. Now I'll go into each of these in a little bit more detail, and then I'll open it up for questions about these. Okay, so a closer look at scenario one. So on top here in the blue, that is along South Ave, pretty close to where we are right now. You guys know that better than I do. This area is consistent between both scenarios because of that station area requirement. This sort of blue bubble here, you need to have at least that 7.4 acres in that, near the train station. So this takes care of that. And of course the other scenario has much more in the station area, and that's sort of a natural place as well. Along the south here, there's existing multifamily down in here somewhere, I believe. That's sort of, it was like a industrial reuse site. I can't remember the
So
name.
back on the split, a little further to the,
What's the name of it?
what's the shoe factory?
The shoe factory.
These properties here.
Okay.
So
Anyway,
next door, this northern end is the apartments.
Is that commercial express on right there?
So what is the train track? Is that like?
It's Broad Street. So that's
Okay.
So the train tracks are a little off screen. They're approximately there. Here, I can. Let me zoom in a little. So that
Yeah, okay.
little blue bit is this. So it's a little ways down in front of the station here.
Okay.
Okay, so I see it now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I have a question. Does that green that you showed on a previous slide, which is the Myrtle Ave apartments, is that encompassed in what you just pointed out as meeting the blue section? Go back one slide, that'd be a bit helpful.
This one.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. So the idea here is that we're combining all three of these sites to make a single compliant district.
Okay.
So think about, you can have your residential zone in that area, and in that area, this is your MBTA community zone, but it's applied to a few different sites. So what the state is going to look for is they're going to add all this together. They don't care how many different sites it is. They care about, your MBTA community zone as a whole all added up.
So does the state care if there's already existing buildings in these?
No. So what it is sort of an unintuitive way
That's why I'm
thinking about it.
I'm thinking
Because
of like
we don't-
open space.
Because we don't really have any other laws really that work this way, but they're purely measuring what does the zoning allow. So you
Okay.
could have an area that has a ton of housing on it already. So Myrtle Ave is already a dense
Yeah.
housing development, so it's already there. So if you put zoning there that says you can do this here, well, it's already there. But the state is just checking whether or not the zoning says.
So we're trying to incorporate what we already have to meet the standards?
So that's scenario one.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just trying to catch up. So I didn't need to-
That's the idea. So since it doesn't matter whether there's housing there or
Okay.
not, a natural starting point is to look at where you have existing density
Okay.
and see,
Question.
Yes, sir.
Is it possible to get a duplicate of what's on the screen there?
yes,
Do you have them? We have to-
yes. So you can have this exact slideshow. These maps are also reproduced in the memo.
Thank you.
Great.
Question?
No, you don't
So
have.
those
color.
three screens that
You don't have that in color that we can have?
I
If you have a color printer.
Yeah, it's printed in color.
Well, actually, I printed this copy out just for reference. This isn't color.
There's that one there, it's not in color, but that's that screen right there.
Yeah, I just want to together in color.
Yeah,
Show up to what I need.
Yeah.
it is kind of
Come back
offset,
to
but
that. The lane is.
I still need to understand, do those three blocks make one area that meets the need?
Yes.
Okay. So when I look at the blue block, the top one, it does not include the green or the peachy pink color. Those are three different separate sites?
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is all of them in the town context. So in this area, they're three separate sites, but we're adding them all up to meet the.
Okay. I just was trying to.
Yeah, of course.
Consideration.
Happy to slow down and explain. So that is the idea. All three of these areas have at least some existing multifamily in them. The final being on Bedford Street. That a lot of that is less developed area, but there are
Yeah.
some existing multifamily on the west side
There
there.
probably fit you two apartment complexes in that stretch, right?
There's three condos and two apartments.
Yeah, I believe all the condos
should be in there.
pretty good.
So these are based off of when I was here last. We looked at a big map of Whitman, and I asked the board and everyone who was present to throw out some ideas of potential locations, starting with places with existing density, and these are sort of the ones that worked out and combined to add up to all the numbers as they should. So I'll show you some of that. So I'll point out the important numbers here. Again, this is all in the memo for you to peruse at your leisure with more detailed explanations. But for now, so from left to right, these are the South Ave, Myrtle Ave, and Bedford Street sites. So this is the total area. They add up to about 41.5 acres. So that is the first important point I want to make. Why is this bigger than the 37-acre minimum? And that is because of density. So you have a certain number of units you have to have, and then you have a certain size. So if you stick to the minimum, 37 acres, and you zone for the 900 units in there, that's a density, well, exactly what it is, but it's well into the 20s, it's higher. So if you want to, you have the option of making the zone bigger than it has to be, but then the density is spread out.
Yeah.
So that's an option, but that's why I made it a bit bigger, because you can afford to go a bit bigger and have somewhat less intensive density on any given site. As you can see, this adds up exactly to 898 units, and the density is about 23. So you have even more leeway, if this is a direction you wanted to go in, but you wanted to make it even bigger to spread out the density, you could. And I think it's totally like a local preference whether you prefer a smaller, denser area or a bigger, more spread out one. That's just...
Height restrictions limit us too.
Right.
So we can't stack them on top of each other as much as other places do.
Right. So these... So that gets into what actual regulations did we. So again, these are not set in stone. This is just a way to do it. If any of these are, galling to you, we can do it a different way, shift it around. But so in terms of minimum lot size, the only reason to adjust the minimum lot size from what it is now is that the model automatically discounts parcels that are non-conforming in terms of size. The logic being, you have to go through extra permissions to build on that, so it's not really like as of right. So if we reduced it, it's to make more of the parcels count and increase the number. So if you don't want to do that, then just the number of anticipated units that the model sees will go down. So you have to adjust for that. So I think in a few scenarios we did do that. Building height, I believe I kept it to what was allowed in your bylaw or existing. They're all
40 feet.
Yeah, so they do it in stories, so it's always a little weird.
Yeah.
But they also don't say like exactly how big they want a story to be, so it's a little fuzzy, but that's about right.
And they move somewhere.
Yeah, it's good enough for the calculations.
Yeah.
Lot coverage, in some of these areas, it's relatively high because these are already, pretty built out areas. It's a little less on Bedford Street, I think 30%, again, that can change, that's not set in stone. This one, additional lot area per unit, you have in your bylaw now for multifamily. I think it's like, off the top of my head, I think 6,000 square feet per unit. So like, if you're proposing 20 units, you would need, math, 240, 24, yeah. Listen, I'm a planner, not a math. All right. So that's like a way of controlling density. That number can't really stand. It's incompatible with the kind of density this law requires. But 1,000 square feet per unit is okay. Can't go too much higher than that.
Mm-hmm.
Parking spaces. This does take parking into account. So if you are married to what's pretty standard in most towns, the 2 spaces per unit, that in their calculations that'll take away area, because they assume a certain size per parking space and they calculate that out. So you'll lose a number of units. So typically, especially for the areas that are like more closer to downtown, closer to the station, we typically recommend like 1.5 for multifamily. But if the town's not comfortable with that, that just means you just have to make up those numbers somewhere else. It's like with all of these, you can turn one up, that means you have to turn something else down and make it all balance out. It's sort of just
Question.
Yes.
The parking spaces, can we limit a 1-bedroom unit would need 1 parking space, 2-bedroom unit would need 1.5?
It's okay to regulate it like that, But for the model is much simpler than that, and we would have to figure out an average to feed it so we can calculate it. You can regulate by bedroom size, but just for the model, it's hard to do that. Yes.
That's also going to be an internal town struggle, logistical nightmare.
Yeah, and you know your town better than I do. This is why,
They all.
if there's any of these, wow, you as a whole. That's why, so, I'm sort of counting on you all to, point out to me if I'm giving you anything that's just like a flat no, you gotta tell me and I'll try to find a way around it. So,
I have a question, I don't know to whom to direct it. What's the height of a parking spot?
It's just the way the bylaw is stated per bedroom. It's 1.5 parking spots per bedroom, so 2 bedroom, right? Am I right? Or am I wrong?
It's
1.25.
1.25. Okay, I'm sorry.
How can it be a fraction? I'm just theoretical here.
it's an optimization number for how they run their X's and their Y's and their.
it's like saying, on average, the number of parking spaces should correspond to roughly 1.5 per the number of units. So, if the number of units is 60, multiply that by 1.5, you'll need 90 spaces. That's just a way to say you'll need one for each unit, then half as many. It's just
So in the
one
aggregate, I'm sure it all works out, it just seems,
Yeah, so for a 2-family that has 1 3-bedroom apartment and 1 1-bedroom apartment, that has 3 parking spaces for the combined space on average.
Gotcha.
This is
Yeah.
for the smallest.
no, it just seems odd.
It must be on the first 2. I first read it too.
Yeah. And you can express it in different ways. You can keep. There's a lot of ways you can do it if you don't like the fractional spaces, but for the model, that's what it likes. So that's just a rough estimate of the amount of parking. So less than 2 per unit in this scenario. I know that's a big sticking point in a lot of towns. So then the last thing here is a limit on the maximum units per acre on the lots. So we're coming up against something a little unintuitive here, so I have a slide on it. So you see here, so let's take the South Ave district, for example. In the scenario we modeled, you're allowed to, on any given lot, go up to 30 units per acre. Just because that makes the numbers work. Again, that's not set in stone. However, you see the way to calculate the density for the district, it's only about 20. So why is that? It's because the way that MBTA communities model calculates density is sort of not the same as how you or I would normally talk about it. So this is how we as human beings, not Excel models, think about parcel density and how most zoning is written. You have a parcel of land, you're allowed to do 20 units per acre on it. That's say it's 20 units here. That is what it is on each lot. But the way this district density is calculated, they draw this whole box around the whole district. So you have 20 units here, 20 units here, 20 units here, but then you have all these rights of ways and roads and other lots that, are say municipal land that they don't count. So all of that gets averaged together and the density on each of these gets diluted. So the district-wide density, especially in a downtown area with a lot of cross streets, the density you write in your zoning and the magic number you have to hit for this law are sort of disconnected, and it's very unintuitive and hard to explain to people when nobody really likes it. But that is why you can't just go into the bylaw, write 15 units per acre, and ship it off to the AG. You gotta do the formula, and that will often, especially in more developed areas that have, like I said, rights of way are really the big one. All those crisscrossing streets in the South Ave area, those dilute the density. So that's why we need to allow 30 units per acre to get a density of 20 units per acre. So it's going to be hard like I said, the inclination is to just say we need 50 units an acre, we got a zone for it. It's usually you're going to have to zone for a bit more in order to actually not fall below that 50 units per acre, which is, it's not ideal, but this is the formula we have. Okay. So that's the first scenario.
So if I'm not wrong, the only way to kind of put those more units in is to go up. Am I right or wrong?
Like physically, like
Yeah, like put beyond
you can also
5 units on 4 floors on 4.
you can still afford to go wider.
Okay.
So if you, like I said, if this density that we're showing here is, too high, you're at 23 units per acre, you can go down to 15. So you could add, I don't know how many, 10, 15, 20 acres maybe,
Okay.
and spread it out across that. So some of those numbers would go down.
Okay.
And again, that's part of what I'm asking is, do we want to see how big we can make it? Like, is that the direction we want to go? Do you want to see that? So you'll see here, this one is bigger still. This one is like 51 acres. And as a result, throughout this, the maximum units per acre can be 25.
Okay.
Lower still. And the total density is about 18 units per acre. So again, it could even be slightly bigger and somewhat less dense. What exactly those numbers will get to, we do not yet know. So this, pretty much the number of units, 899, you got one extra in there. Tons of area within the station radius. This is going on both sides of the station. And basically, the idea with this one is just start at the station and some of the areas along South Ave we already modeled, connect them, and just see what a district along South Avenue would look like. And as you can see, max building height, 3 stories, so roughly what you allow. Maximum lot coverage, 40%. Parking spaces, again, 1.5. The additional lot area unit, 1,000. That's the same. So this one is a much simpler scenario. It's all the same regulations throughout. Whereas the other one, switch it up a little bit to try to tailor it more to the sites. So those really are the two we modeled, both equally compliant in the eyes of the law. I'll go back to this for all of them. They're showing it. So really, what you want to know is, first of all, which of these, if any, is more desirable? Are we headed in the right direction? Or neither of these? Is there some third way? I just want to get your feedback on what you might be interested in pursuing, and then another round of modeling where I can make those changes and show you a scenario that's even closer to what the town might find acceptable. So,
Question, and this can be for anyone who wants to chime in. I am concerned about adding to the Myrtle Ave location. If what's being represented just from your formula, however, what is existing there, it was or was not included, it's going to make that's going to be a much higher density. I don't have a problem with high density, but I don't think adding to that area is a good way to go, because you'll just be stacking what's already stacked.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
if we take the Myrtle Ave and put it in the district, they don't have to change anything. They don't have to add any units there because they're already there.
yeah, I mean, nobody has to do anything. It's just allowed now. Yeah, so I think you are right in this scenario. I think the numbers worked out to somewhat more than is currently there, but it doesn't have to. We could tamp it back down and be like, the exact number of units that are there now, that's what's allowed. And then that will eliminate that concern, basically. But I think it would be unlikely for that to get redeveloped to add units anyway, even if more were technically allowed. I mean, yeah, that's sort of,
It's a
who knows.
historic building.
Well, I think one thing we need to think about too, and I don't know if Justin knows about the gentleman who just came in about Franklin Street that was interested in doing a high density And that was right, pretty much right by the, right, if I'm not mistaken, it would have been right in here. Oh, sorry. Right? That's Franklin Street.
That's right.
So he wanted to be right in here, and he wanted to put those units within a half a mile of the train station.
Okay.
Would that be wetlands that I don't think would count in our,
There was some he bordered.
okay.
It was down, I forget the street that he came off of. He wanted to do initially, like.
Where the radio tower is.
So, yes,
Okay.
but down off of that, towards the station more is where he wanted to, we told him to go forward with coming up with his idea and everything like that. He hasn't come back with anything yet, but that was the area in which he wanted to fall into this category of exactly what you're saying. I don't know how many units he plans.
Yeah, so just so everything, this is Franklin?
Yep.
Okay.
So somewhere within, I don't know exactly where the tower stands. I don't know the area that well.
He's across from Dana Street, if you can see Dana.
So that might be a potential area we might want to include in this.
Yeah.
This lot here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if we have to rezone to do something anyway, that might not be a bad idea to add to it.
Yeah, sure.
So, you know,
It's used here as like as a sort of emissary for some developer, right? I don't think he
he was with the owner. So eventually, initially wanted to put a cul-de-sac with commercial, like 20 by 100 commercial units, you know, like for electricians or whatnot to store. Then he came back and scrapped that. He got permission from zoning to decrease the drop radius of the cell tower and stuff, and he wanted to put in, he was trying to see how we felt about it before he developed it.
But he
Yes,
got,
Lynn.
he got permission to change the drop area because it was gonna be commercial.
Yes,
When it goes to residential, there's a whole different
Yes.
ruling.
yeah, but that's the area he wanted to, so I would say if we could include those acres into this somehow.
Can I ask something, just to get an overview? So what you've done is basically taking what we already have, and we've qualified with what we already have. So now you're asking us to write a zoning law that meets your recommendations or some changes that we might make. But we could virtually take what you recommended and accept it without diminishing the fact that we could add additional buildings through time. As long as we're meeting what's required, does that prohibit us from deciding to include this gentleman we're talking about on Franklin Street in the future?
No, the state has no interest in punishing towns for going beyond
It's just
what they've required. So that would be fine. Yeah, it's, you know, in other communities I've worked in, sometimes people get a little wrapped up in like trying to bundle all their housing issues.
Right.
So an issue that this is just one zoning district the state
Yeah.
is requiring. There's lots of other avenues.
So like we've said, scenario 2, everything you put in scenario 2 incorporates everything we have into meeting the qualifications for what we need from the state.
One question on zone 2 of scenario 2. The school was given a specific use for education. That land was given to the town.
The Mark Ave School, I was thinking the same thing.
Yes, I was going to ask about that. That struck me as something I should ask about.
yes.
I read some articles about it. So I guess the question is, should that just come out? Or is it,
Where is that on there?
no, so this
At
is,
school.
It's a big block.
Right, I'm just trying to, okay, that's what, I just want to make sure I look at the same place you're talking
yeah,
about.
so I couldn't, in my research, I couldn't find like any like specific like plans for it necessarily. It seemed like it's been set vacant for us, so it's just like, let me throw this in here, and if it's not appropriate, I can take it back.
I can probably take the best crack at that. So, right, it's municipal land. It was a school.
Yes.
The town has no intention to sell it. However, if we can't get we're currently in a legal challenge to be released from that deed restriction. The town did pay for the land, but we paid less than market value. So does the restriction to use it for a school still apply? Now, it has been used for a school, but we paid for it. So that's kind of, it's in a legal limbo now. If where the town has no intention to sell it, I think it would be our intent to either lease it to a school if we can't use it for something else, or use it for municipal purposes. So I don't know that it meets the intent, although if we could draw, zoning capacity into municipal land.
You can, but it sounds like, based on that description, I think that this particular parcel, the state would not find that plausible.
It's kind of big.
So, okay.
So you would take it out?
Yeah, I'd take that out then.
Okay, one other thing,
Yeah.
why don't we include the railroad station itself in the zone?
Um,
Quincy has number of apartments above and adjacent to the, over the parking lots. Why can't we include
So- as just as like a matter of course, automatically anything owned by like MBTA or the state or anything automatically doesn't produce units because the town doesn't have any control over what happens. I understand that housing can happen there, but that's just the ruling they made when they set up these guidelines.
You have the post office in there.
Secondly, thirdly, why don't we just take the commercial zone that we have there and just overlay the commercial zone?
You could, if that's what you think, if you think that would be
Because
good in women, you could do that.
because we've had potential of development in the commercial zone, we're very high density, and, you know, people can redevelop it. It's gotta be somewhat developable land, but,
I mean, if that's what you wanted to do, there'd be no problem with it. I guess the only thing would be, given how the market is now zoning all your commercial land to allow higher density residential, you might get it. I mean, not everywhere, obviously, but a lot of towns are concerned with, like, might we lose this commercial land if we?
oh, it's all junk anyway.
On street and near,
Yeah.
right?
It's all junk anyways.
Well, if that's how you feel. We can do it. Yeah.
One's a little hole in the ground.
But,
Okay. So that area.
The potential.
That's the potential.
Another potential area. Right.
that way it's all very close adjacent to the railroads.
Yeah, 40B developer did that a couple of years ago.
Yeah, okay.
With like 220 units or something?
Massive.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we're going through, like I was saying before, if we're going through, we might as well include what the other gentleman was talking about doing down. I think that's all behind the old Regal shoot, whatever that was, the tannery, right? Is that a
The
tannery or
on
something?
street one?
No, down where the gentleman was saying, across on Franklin Street,
Well,
that's all behind the old Regal building, right?
No.
No?
The Regal building is in front of Pond Street area.
Okay.
The Regal building is counted in here. Although
That's
now
Where Regal used to be.
recreational marijuana, so I'm not sure that housing is appropriate for.
Yeah.
Well, it's acreage.
Right, it counts for the compliance.
Right. Whether or not anyone wants to build housing there is not really.
Right.
That's up to the market. You know.
Right.
So okay, so I've got some good notes on some potential areas around here near the station to expand. So based on how this conversation has gone, it seems like there's a little more energy towards maybe concentrating it in this area. Is that fair to say?
That would be that's Justin.
So if you go back to scenario 1 for a second, I just wanted to kind of ask one of the things that I thought might be valuable here. I mean, one, this is probably the least impactful to the town. It's we're getting credit for the units that exist
That's here.
here and then 2 properties here.
Yeah.
I do think that this would be the BFI print building,
The what?
the BFI print building,
Yeah.
which would be an attractive multi-unit development.
If
If someone would come and clean it up.
clean it
Yeah.
up.
If we could incentivize that might actually be a decent idea here. I'm just trying to think through, if one of these were proposed to town meeting as a bylaw amendment, is this more palatable than?
That's why I was trying to get for you.
Yeah, we can mix and match. If we want to go heavier on South Ave and maybe just retain a little bit of some of these sites, we can do
Well,
that.
taking the larger buildings we do have in town, incorporating would be a good idea.
Right, because then realistically, nothing is probably gonna change here.
No.
It's just that it was built prior to our particular zoning bylaws, I mentioned, it's an older building.
Well, it was a
That's
factory.
It was a
conversion.
factory,
Yeah.
conversion.
Yeah.
And actually, so, although this would have been built with special permit, this is a little more recent,
Probably.
but,
Both of them,
both
the blue one-
was too.
the blue one was a factory as well. It was
Yeah,
part of
that was
the
Bostonian.
Gurney. Now, Bostonian is Myrtle Street.
Oh, it's named Myrtle.
That's Bostonian. Up on Bedford Street, which comes into Warren Ave, where you've got that multi-unit apartment house, that was also a factory.
Interesting. So yeah, that's been our.
This is why I asked so many questions, I really don't know the area as well, that's why.
And it's, I mean, let's be real here, it's all going to be public perception.
And so this is one of those.
And I know exactly what you're getting at.
Right, if the state, really, the whole reason we're doing this is the state saying you have to comply with this. Catherine and I have to make our best efforts, we don't know, a town planner, to come up with a way to comply with the law. So I think this is probably the easier sell, although I think there probably is value in if we're gonna actually encourage multifamily housing, putting new commuter rail. Like that's,
Yeah.
really, we probably want it for new.
And I
clients.
wonder if people might dispute this, we cut this particular version, because right next to Myrtle Street is all residential going behind it.
Right,
And South Ave's not. And then also up where the Warren Ave situation is, that's all residential except for that factory.
True.
And the Bedford Street, it's very commercialized, and there are a lot of small plots that people worry about being developed. So I'm kind of leaning the other way towards the
Yeah.
railroad
and
station.
I'm looking at this, I think this is Glen here, so Warren is a little further up this way. But
Yeah, Glenn's,
still, this has been more challenging areas to build in recently.
right, but that blue, the South Ave site to
Yeah.
the back of Washington Street,
Yes.
that's where you're gonna get your Warren Ave, I believe.
Oh, on the other,
Maybe he didn't include that, I can't tell.
I don't think that's,
Where's Washington Street on that map?
It's way over.
this is Washington.
Okay, so it looks like he didn't include the factory I was talking about on
Yeah,
Warren
this is
Ave.
Whitman Ave here, so Warren Ave would be up.
So maybe to get included, unless it's in the Bedford Street part. Where does the Bedford Street part entail?
Here, so we were just looking up, like in this area, I think.
Can you tell me what
Bedford Street.
streets are there? We can't really see that.
Yeah,
Did you,
That's fair.
so Myrtle, here. Warren would be one of these.
Okay, so
Right, I think this is Warren.
Myrtle,
Yeah.
that green little spot, that might be the factory I was talking about.
Yes, I think you're right.
yeah, that's already developed.
The green spot is
Yeah, that's
Myrtle.
apartments.
To Washington?
The green spot is Myrtle.
Yeah, that's where the factories are on Myrtle.
Okay.
Warren's the next street over.
Yeah.
So there's very minor chance of them tearing that down and putting more dense development.
Right.
Right, because everything else around that green
It's
spot
more,
is
it's changing
residential.
what's existing there, being allowed by special permit to, if they were to tear it down.
You kind of rewording what's there already.
Kind
That's how I look at it.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm not saying that's right.
But if the merits, I think there would be value to encouraging multifamily developments along here. That might be more appropriate for a 40R overlay district than
Yeah,
trying to come up with compliant design. Then we get density bonuses. But then there's an incentive for the town as well as the.
Now, if we kept the green space and the three other separate ones and then put a little bit around the train station itself, increasing the area, where we decrease the density of the ones around, the three around.
Yeah, that could work.
Yeah, that way, if we get the density to basically what it is right now, then you can say, this is allowed, nothing more can be allowed in that area.
Changing the special permit to by right, but it's making us compliant with the state law.
Yeah.
And then picking up a little bit more potential along here.
Basically,
yeah, we can use that Park Ave, that little,
Because you would have to
you
have
have
those
those
large.
Park Ave, you have that light green,
No,
to replace the Park Ave part you're losing, that
Oh, true,
balance
yes.
it out.
That's probably a fair swap.
Yeah, that's what's,
Yeah,
no,
so you get a visual picture
Yeah.
here as well.
Yeah. we're all gonna do.
This.
can you stand back a little bit?
So basically, so to make this not a thing, and then
No, just a little step.
Just a little.
Basically,
Just this.
take this piece here out, I'll go this way, take this little here out, and add that
To replace it.
to scenario 2.
so
That would
if
stay
you
off
come
of
out
it.
of this area.
Yep, because that's the municipal
Okay.
that they own. Add this to scenario 2, and then take that part out, correct? 'Cause that's part of scenario 1.
Yeah, so there's,
So I'm just-
these are part of both.
Yeah,
I think that would work. I think
Yeah.
that
Close to it.
It looks pretty
Yeah,
close,
it's
it's probably a little, you get the density of the building that's existing, you might lose a few acres. But then if you include the other part going down beside the T for Franklin, where this other guy wants to go, you're adding the acres for that.
And then to I guess Elaine's point, does Myrtle Ave make more sense than Bedford Street if you're trying to just pick up more acreage?
Yeah.
So where this is already the highway zoning district,
Yeah,
we're getting condos, we've got a couple apartments here.
yeah,
Does that make more sense than the apartment building in more of a residential area?
yeah.
In Bedford Street, about as far as.
Every time we need something, we throw it on Bedford Street.
That's the furthest absolute end of where it can
You know,
go.
at least we have a couple of ideas.
I think more of your pushback is gonna come from people that live in an area such as Myrtle Street, where you've got a factory that is apartments, that everything around that property
Houses.
is houses.
Yeah.
No matter which way you go until you get to Washington and get to Bedford.
Yep.
You're gonna get less pushback because they'll look at that building and say, well, it's apartments, or
Yeah.
at least it's what we are. You know,
You're never gonna get them to change the zoning on Bedford Street.
You don't think so?
That's the main business district of the town. From Abington to East Bridgewater. That's all, you know, all of the homes that have been torn down,
and
it's all commercial.
And this wouldn't be, I guess for Tyler, this wouldn't be structured as replacing the highway business commercial zoning district. It's what a complementary.
An overlay,
we'd recommend doing that as an overlay.
yeah.
So you can keep it as,
so it's both, it would be high density and
Right.
commercial, you know,
Yeah.
whatever.
And, you know, in the market.
9+% residential,
Yeah,
more likely going to be.
so that would probably go over better if it was just an overlay. As a replacement or a rezoning.
It's a lot simpler from a technical
Yeah.
perspective to do the zoning too. That alone is a reason to do that overlay.
Yeah.
And it doesn't prevent the town from accepting another multi-family situation on Bedford Street. We're just building an area that we already comply and we wanna keep it.
We're trying to catch up to the Joneses, basically.
It would allow, I guess the Bedford scenario is that the BFI print building could then be fast-tracked by a developer, not have to come before the ZBA for a special permit.
But good luck
Forget
finding somebody to
that.
clean that. You've been trying for a while.
Right?
keep the Bedford area, because could be business or residential. It really doesn't impact too many people, other than the people who live down in here, but they've had this stuff here already. Okay, now go back to the other scenario. So if we take the Bedford.
Yep.
In this scenario here, where's the,
The first slide had all the
First slide,
scenarios, so
we
put
can
the
go back.
fellas.
so if we pick up some of the area here and include this area here where the Boston Shoe used to be, or whatever shoe it was, into here, it kind of bring this in a little bit, would that make sense?
I think so. Yeah, so the Bedford Street, let's see, so that's like, the configuration it's in now, we can change, that's like about 24 acres.
Yeah.
And this is 51 total, so if we cut some of that,
Yeah, I think so. Park out here would have to come out. I imagine
Yeah, that would be
something.
So, something in that would come out
okay.
And
in,
actually, town hall.
So that blue circle that's right there, that's a half a mile radius, right? Okay, just making sure.
Yeah, and
and
That would put everything in a half a mile.
is there any reason why this land here hasn't been picked up?
The water?
I think it's what.
Wetlands.
Yeah.
I think that's wetlands, but
So this is the 4 acre, at one point, Market Basket looked at this and they
Yeah,
made
yeah.
this work.
The gentleman who
Is that
wanted
right
to do
next to the railroad?
Sorry, Lynn.
It's all wet.
that is
Yeah.
next to the
He
road.
bought, the guy gentleman with the cell tower, where he wanted to board the wetlands, because he said the fire
Yeah,
access
but
goes down to there.
So, yeah.
Even if there's 100 feet, 150 feet back from the road that's,
That's
so
all
this,
wet.
I mean, this
Yeah, you
here,
no, it's dry.
That's where Market Basket traffic
this
comes.
property here,
But Market
this
Basket
would also be a pretty quick.
It would go
Yeah.
way back from Market Basket. But I'm just saying, maybe 200 feet or something
Yeah.
off that road, it adds a little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah, you could do that. Okay.
I think it's more sellable.
And say
That's why I first asked your opinion.
You end up keeping some of the existing stuff on there,
Yeah, exactly.
minimize the impact down here.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So summarize, so I'm sure I understand. So we're going to keep the focus on this scenario here on South Ave, but cut back. Cut back here. Remove this.
Yeah.
Keep pretty much everything else the same. Any other areas to cut back on?
No, I think that would pretty much hit add Myrtle Street, right? Is that
So
what we're saying,
then-
that was existing?
We could add North Street if we wanted,
That would take Myrtle Street up.
but we wouldn't need to.
We would need, okay,
You wouldn't need to.
okay.
That would take what out of it?
Myrtle Street.
So take out that Bedford Street, you're saying, and take out the other side outside the half a mile.
What do
That we just
what are you
showed.
putting where the Park Ave school is?
Nothing,
Yeah, we're going to take that out.
You're just gonna take it out and leave it out?
yeah.
No,
Then-
not replace it with anything?
Yep, we're gonna pick up Bedford Street on the bottom right.
Yeah. So actually, so this area was more, this plus this extended to the
We're
station.
gonna add the overlay
More or less.
Okay.
Maybe some of the benefits will be
on
properties
the bottom right.
to make it work.
And so yeah, we'll see.
What you were saying was the commercial, leave it commercial, but overlay a possibility of using it for that as well.
I guess,
See if it works.
You guys would be
You're not gonna get approval to build any houses on
They don't have to approve the building, they just have to have
The ability.
the chance to, or the ability to, or the zoning to do it. If they need to, they don't have to approve it. We just need the acreage.
No, there's no approval from zoning because it's a right.
It didn't be better, so one
Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's true too.
that is the point, that they'd be able to do it without approval. Now you can still do like a site plan review process.
Yeah.
So don't forget, it's not like there's no review whatsoever. It just can't be a no.
would that site plan review process go through the building department rather than a board?
Sorry.
Typically when we talk about site plan review process, we're talking about review by a board, but I'd have to think about that. I don't think I have all the legal nuances.
So just to go back to what Wayne was saying, you have to think the zoning board would approve that. Can they stop that?
Too bad.
If they had site plan approval, well,
No, but can they stop us from overlaying that
No.
and going through with this scenario?
Well, I mean, ultimately it's up to town meeting.
So it's up to town
if
meeting,
the
not the
bylaw
zoning
change,
board.
it would actually have a public hearing before you guys.
Yeah.
Have the,
Right.
maybe the bylaw study committee, the zoning bylaw.
What's-
so-
What's the
just trying
timeline of this thing?
So the deadline
Yeah,
for
yeah,
compliance is the end of next year, December 31st, 2024. So you're probably going to want to aim, most towns like start aiming to have something at their regular town meeting in
May.
2024. May.
26th,
Yeah.
But that should be doable.
That's kind of close.
I guess I wanna understand, are we doing something that just gets us to meet it, or that it's doable? I mean, when we say they don't have to build on Bedford Street, then why are we putting Bedford Street in it?
Well, the model that the state has designed is sort of meant to sort of vet whether it's considered doable enough for them to say it's okay.
So you're just trying to meet the requirements, but then you're saying it'll come back to the zoning board, for example, or us, to say whether a variance is allowed or not.
They override.
It can't depend on a variance, what we're doing here. So,
Yeah, because to me, that doesn't make any sense. You're creating an area that you know you're not gonna get through.
Well, who says it's not gonna get through? If it's by right, I come in and I wanna take the printing company, and I wanna put 200 units in there with a parking garage underneath. And as long as it comes before zoning, and zoning says, I'm gonna take a look at the traffic going on and off Bedford Street, sight lines, all that type of stuff. As long as it meets the requirements, zoning's gonna allow it.
But that's because it's required to have a variance, from what I was understanding.
There's no variance involved. It's only a site plan review, no variance.
right.
They may come in for a variance on
Setback.
site back or something like that, but, by right, they have a right to put so many, if it's 30 units per acre, that's 4 acres. They can put 120 units in and then zoning can't tell them no.
You know, provided they can meet, Title V. And,
Oh, yeah, all that,
Yeah.
so,
Can we add more than we need?
yes. You can have
Theoretically, you can combine scenario 1 and 2 if you wanted to.
Sure.
But
the only thing that happens when you make it really big, let's say we make it like, I don't know, 100 acres, 150 acres. At that point, to keep above the 15 unit per acre density, you got to start zoning for more units. Like you might have to zone for, instead of just 900, you might have to go and zone for 1,200 in order to keep it
yeah.
that density level. So there's a balance between you have room to make it bigger and still comply with that minimum number.
Yeah.
If you make it too big, then all of a sudden you're obligating yourself to zone for more than your minimum number, which
So I see where
town meetings might ask that question.
Yeah, I see where your scenarios are coming in with the acreage and the
It's all these little levers in this model, and you gotta
tweet
mess
this.
around with them. Yeah, that's a lot of what this is. And then once you have a scenario that looks good in the model, then you move on to what does that look like as a written zoning district in the bylaw?
I think that's a pretty good start.
Okay, so the timeline.
Right.
You presented here, it's already the end of October.
Yep.
If we're gonna go to town meeting in May, we need to have a hearing from the planning board probably sometime the end of March. We need to have something in place, I would assume by January, so the bylaw study committee can review it. So which means you gotta come back to us probably within a month with something pretty substantial that we could say, yay and nay, that makes sense. It's not the final vote from the planning board, but it makes sense.
Alright, so talking a little bit about the schedule and what is left in this scope. So just as a refresher, what we're doing right now is funded with a technical assistance grant from Mass Housing Partnership that the town applied for.
Yeah.
So that's I think it was
17.
17, thank you. Right off the top of your head.
Yeah.
Very good.
Beautiful.
So that's a relatively limited scope. And so what we have scoped in this time period. So first of all, the time frame, the contract is good through the end of the year. So which I think is plenty of time to complete what we're scoped to do at least. So finish modeling, leave you with at least one clear scenario that you're comfortable, championing, even if some tweaks get made down the line, come back with some of these changes made. Then we also have built in to at least start to look at the regulations. We'll read through your existing bylaw. We will identify anything that might conflict with this. Give you the basic outline of what this zoning district has to contain. But given the amount we have to work with now, we're not going to be able to write a full zoning. That's just beyond the scope of the grant, you guys.
Yeah.
So,
And I did just for the I guess everybody else, I just forwarded the MHP additional grant application to Kathy. So
Okay.
if you want to continue this
yeah,
process.
they are still giving
They're
out
still
money.
doing
So
well, yeah.
you're not going to be kicked out to the curb on your own if you don't want to be. So
Okay.
I don't know how that works with you guys, or if you're gonna have to hand it off to whoever they select as the next.
we can talk about that. If you want to stay with us, you can ask them, and they'll come and ask us. Hey, you're gonna keep working with these guys, and since you've been pretty nice to me so far, we
Trying to be anyway.
Remember, we're being recorded.
So, from what I understand, I think it's probably not unlikely they'll just be like, okay, go ahead. Yeah, here's the next phase of it. So,
Good. Oh,
yeah, they they're really trying to. The state wants to get all the towns to comply.
Yeah.
So if they're willing to accept the help, they'll give the money.
What we said to you tonight, help, does it sound doable, reasonable?
Yeah, so let me just make sure I've got, what we want to do. So we want to take this scenario, we want to cut down some areas, add maybe this Franklin Street site, that I'll double check exactly the parcel, because I think it's that one.
Yep.
The adjacent one. Look at, up here,
66 Pond is the
66
is the interested parcel.
66. Okay, and then see how much of these we can also bring in. See, so it'll be getting a little big, but I can't say off the top of my head if it'll be getting too big, so I'll have to
Well,
play
why,
around with it.
why do we have to bring in Myrtle
I
Street?
think it was just Bedford Street we were saying, not
Okay.
Bedford or South, just Bedford.
That's why I'm going over
Yep,
again. Okay,
yep.
forget this.
Yep,
And we'll do Bedford and the other adjacent areas.
Yeah.
Here.
and then a little bit on Franklin. Because
Yes.
we know he wants to already do that, so you might as well
A
include
little
it.
bit on Franklin, look at Pond, and
So if
so
he doesn't,
He,
then the gentleman who came in,
the architect?
yes, yeah.
One
So we
with
told him
tower.
to go forward, but yeah.
The cell tower.
So if he's already interested in going forward with an architect,
You'd probably still need a variance for the tower, fall height, whatever is the
Yeah.
restriction.
Especially if it's residential.
Yeah, house residential.
yeah.
okay. So let's see.
But if I'm not mistaken, he said it was about, what, 12 acres or something like that?
I'm formulating, so I'm thinking about how much time should. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
Oh, no,
No,
oh,
Okay,
not,
so-
not you.
So for this additional round of modeling, so what I'll produce is basically another shorter memo, an addendum to the first memo. There'll be maps. There'll be another table with short narrative. It's a lighter lift than the first one. So today is the 28th, 24th. Next few weeks are a little crazy for me, but let's see. Certainly first half of it. So I guess the question is, with this new memo, you need to come back and present it. I think that's probably fine, given what the scope is. And if that's what you want me to do, we look at meeting dates. And
what do you say, November or December? January, whatever.
So
for
are
the
we,
next round of modeling, it should be November, because then we have to start taking a look at the regulations. And
So November, we are the 14th and the 28th of our meetings,
okay, November 28th.
correct? Just double
Yeah.
checking myself.
Yes, that's correct.
That parcel on Franklin Street's 185.
185, thank you.
That's,
We had a meeting this Monday.
that's the one's right up in the front, but that would be a big parcel behind it.
Right.
Yeah,
But how
Thank
many times
Oh,
over?
if that's the case.
I'm not sure.
I'm sorry, I didn't,
Yeah, no, no.
We're trying to figure out the selectment meeting schedule.
okay.
So that hasn't been agreed upon by the membership with a few proposed dates.
Sorry
Okay.
about that.
No, I just wanna make sure we're including,
I'm okay with showing up on a date that we're not.
yeah, whatever we have to do.
To.
If it need a special meeting, as long as we can post it ahead of time.
I care.
That's what you want to do?
care.
It's up to you.
Oh, it's up to me.
Yeah, well, we wanna make sure we.
I'm not the chair to play. But, so, if you propose a date, I'll look at my calendar and see if it's possible.
Yeah.
If we're doing it, if it is delayed to the 28th, then that's enough time where we might take some extra time to start at least doing some of the regulatory stuff.
Do you wanna just say November 28th?
More than it, yeah, because I mean, we don't need that much time just to do this additional modeling.
Yeah.
We can do more and talk about more. So if you want, I'll leave it up to you. Either way works fine for me. If you do it earlier, we can just talk about the modeling. If you do it later, we can do some regulatory review too. Maybe not all of it, but at least have a substantially more to talk about.
What does everyone else think?
It's highly, could be ready for the 14th. I think we have a tax classification hearing on the 28th, which
Okay,
I have to be at, and Kathy.
okay, so why don't we shoot for the 14th then?
If you can do it,
See.
if you think it's reasonable.
But yeah, that's a short turnaround for you.
The 14th, in terms of like actually doing the modeling maybe, but that week I believe there might be, that may not be.
I know we're getting close to Thanksgiving and stuff too, so.
Yeah, so the 28th.
Especially if we do the 21st is the week of
Yeah,
Thanksgiving.
I'll be around.
Earlier in the day.
Fiction.
On the 28th of
28th
November, earlier? Does this board meet, can you meet earlier?
I can make it work, I don't know what,
I will because I care about this.
Yeah, I can make it work.
It's, I want to have more answers that we can give to whoever's getting them before the end of the year. I want to be able to say, we think
it's 5 o'clock,
we're,
28th.
we think we're fine tuning X for January 1st, and then whoever else you
Yeah.
I
think
think
at
it
it.
would work, yes.
So 5, let's say 5 o'clock on the 28th.
Sure.
What day is the week of that?
That's on Tuesday. We have our meeting, we'll move our meeting from 7 o'clock to 5
Yeah, you
o'clock
guys go home also.
on that day.
I'm only 2
Melissa, is
minutes
that
away.
good for you?
Yeah, I can make it.
Elaine?
Yeah.
Everybody? Bob?
Yeah, I'll try to work through it,
Okay. I just wanna make sure I get everybody, make sure.
but I'll charge you
So-
for consulting me.
That's okay, yeah, we'll just, I'll put it in the new budget.
Okay,
Wish I could answer for that soon too.
November 28th at 5 p.m.
5 PM, right in here.
Right here.
We'll just post that early, we'll change our meeting.
That's Tuesday after Thanksgiving.
Tuesday, yes, yep,
We got zoning board on Monday,
yep, so that'll be that Tuesday, we'll make our meeting here at 5 o'clock instead of 7.
and then we'll be out of here by seven.
But yeah.
It's right upstairs for us.
Yeah, you know,
I won't take that long.
but at least it gets you here and, you know,
Oh, that's great.
even if it, you know, as long as that works, okay?
Yeah, that works for me. Okay, excellent.
Alright, it gives you that extra couple of weeks too, so you're not trying to cram it in, so.
Yeah, the 14th, that's within 24 hours of a big meeting. I'll
Yeah.
flat out.
Yeah, no, that
So,
works.
perfect. No, I really appreciate it.
Right.
I'm back with a nice, scenario number 3 for you. Yeah, it was a great conversation. Thank you all for.
Brendan, do I have to get you got one last question? Okay, I think we're heading in the right direction. Anyway,
Yeah, great.
just, you know,
I really appreciate you taking a look and refining it even
so
further.
thank you for everything you've done.
Hopefully, we can leave you with something that is, doable and is at least,
We want to make sure we have something that's presentable, and
somewhat
possibly
acceptable.
passable.
Yeah.
So we know how people can be.
Right, and as acceptable to the community as possible.
That's why my first question was to you, what you thought.
I mean,
So-
this is gonna be a.
People can surprise it too.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah.
I don't wanna write something shabby for the sake of negativity and a bad response.
So last meeting we had transgender chains, so.
Is that what it was?
That's what it ended up being, in my opinion.
Just a little bit of tape.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah.
Chicken biology is interesting. I don't know anything about it.
There's nothing inappropriate.
Town meeting.
No.
I
Anyway,
didn't leave anything out. Okay.
thank you very much.
Have an excellent night, everyone.
Thank you as well.
We'll
See
be
you on the
in touch.
20th. Perfect.
Excellent.
Okay, good.
Justin, is there anything else you need from us?
I don't think so.
I just have to lock the doors, I guess. Are you folks,
No, we still have one more application to go over.
Do you like
do
it?
you have the means to the front hand side? Oh my goodness.
We're out of here.
I've been trying to get that since I came on the board.
You don't know about that yet?
Nope,
Alright.
it took me 3 years to get an email. No, we're working on the badge part, but
Alright.
I
think Josh took my picture of that. We're right there.
Yeah,
I
that
haven't got that yet either.
Yeah, I have my badge.
Jack quit.
Thanks very much.
Kathy, thank
Thank
you
you guys so much.
Thank you.
is, okay.
Thank you.
Good to
Perfect.
see y'all. Have fun. Be safe.
Alright, cool. I guess still got time. I don't have to leave at 8:30, so.
Wayne has it in front of him.
What's on the hell I know?
Were we unhelpful or is that indirectionless?
No, I thought that went good. Good. I think exactly what we're here to do.
A lot of numbers and stuff, so
No, I
sometimes it
think-
gets jumbled.
By getting Myrtle Street out, I think it's, getting out of the residential area, and people assume it's gonna be around the train station anyways.
You got everything within that half mile too.
Yeah.
I think it's sellable.
But I think the Bedford Street is sellable.
Yeah, yep, there's a place, yeah.
I don't have a full opinion. I just think that once we rezone or overlay whatever's near Myrtle, ain't nothing gonna get built there. Nothing.
That's for developers to come in and decide.
Yeah.
Alright, let's do this last one of the night. We have 75 Vincent Street Extension, residence zone A2, existing dwelling, proposed shed. Paulo Chamorro and Catherine Gemma Ingamanson. Let's see, acquired the property 9/24/21 application has been filed with the clerk and no previous appeal has been made. Section of bylaw of which relief is requested, section 240-6.2A. Reason for asking of relief. The property and dwelling is bordered by two streets. In front of the dwelling is Vincent Street Extension. To the rear of the dwelling is Plymouth Street. The applicant wishes to locate a shed behind the dwelling in the backyard using the rear setback requirements for an accessory building. The Plymouth Street front yard requirement creates a hardship for location of the shed between the existing dwelling and Plymouth Street. Required setback. The existing topography and utility easement also limits the location of where the shed can be located. All right. We'll open the floor to comments.
Okay, what's,
I'm gonna defer.
in that zone, what's the required setback from the rear line?
I don't have that, I don't have my,
10 feet side or rear lot, 10 feet from the home, and 25% of the yard acreage cannot be more than 25%.
Well, if he's got 12 feet,
He's got 12 feet from the back,
Okay?
so does he need he doesn't need a variance for that.
What about the side?
22 feet.
22 feet from
But
the
the
side.
border makes the easement, don't know if that matters.
Easement doesn't matter,
Okay.
as long as he doesn't build on the easement.
Yep, he's right up
Can you
against.
tell if it's taking up more than 25, do we have the size of the building you want?
24 by 14.
And is that
Is that
taking up more than 25% of the rear area?
But the rear area?
It's big, it's a big backyard.
I don't see what it's here.
Unless somebody was
You know,
making it,
you don't go by the building and, you know, the envelope for the house.
but somebody may have said, well, Plymouth Street, he has to have the front, have the street setback from the street. So that may be the contention.
Is he set 10,
This doesn't make sense.
is he set 10 feet from the street?
What?
Is he set 10 feet from the street?
Yep,
He's
12.
12 feet from the property line.
Then he's fine with that.
Yeah.
My only concern would be the area, the rear area, does it take up 25%? And what did you say the size of the building was?
24 by 14?
330 square feet.
Let me just show this for like 1 second, just so you can have an idea.
I've seen it.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying, that's a lot less than 25%.
I've seen this.
Okay.
I just didn't know the size. And the building is already there.
We'll never note that from the lane. You good?
Yeah.
All right.
What's he looking for, a variance?
It doesn't, it's a provide, what is exactly 24-6.2A state? That's what they're asking.
And that's what I just read to you.
Yep, so it seems like it meets,
It's the requirements.
yeah,
Unless the building inspector was saying that he needed to.
it might be a formality since it's existing.
No,
No?
I'm saying setback from the street,
Yeah,
because you need a,
but it's still the rear of the property, so I don't see why we would. In my opinion. Somebody like to make a motion?
I'm trying to figure out how to word it.
Let's make a motion to approve. I don't think it really needs any.
I don't see why we have to approve anything.
Just make it for a formality.
make a motion, the planning board makes a motion to, the planning board feels that, there isn't a variance required, the planning board has no, issue with this, existing shed.
With the Plymouth Street setback.
Yes.
So Plymouth Street setback. Good. You have a second?
Can you read that back, Melissa?
So, you make a motion that the board feels there is no
Variance.
variance required and that we approve of the existing shed.
Or the existing location of the setback from Plymouth Street.
Yes, the existing shed, the existing, plan.
Okay.
Okay.
Plan.
Yeah, because if we say existing shed, then we'll say that the shed is there.
For the proposed shed setbacks from Plymouth Street.
But it is there.
We made that note of that. Do we have a second?
I'll say,
Second by Wayne. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Abstain.
Alright, so 3-2.
302.
302.
3-0, yes. My bad, I'm sorry.
302.
you know, for a minute, I was thinking.
Does that pass or no?
Yes.
Okay.
I was thinking you were the zoning board.
I would make a fuss.
I'm gonna excuse myself before the minutes unless you need me to do the minutes.
Nope, I just have one, item of, I got an email from someone, not texted me.
Okay.
Just that, someone is gonna be bringing forth a Form C that was already brought forth back in 2009. That both the Abington Planning Board and Whitman Planning Board approved a version of the definitive subdivision plan for a 9-lot residential subdivision at the above subjected location, and which would be Rose Place. So they're re-bringing it forth.
What's the name of that?
Rose Place. And it was back from 2009 when originally it was approved.
We don't worry.
So he's,
And it says 9 lots?
yes. I don't have the exact address here because they haven't filed with us. That will be brought to the next meeting. But he's just giving us a heads up that it's coming.
Steve?
I just want to make
A
sure.
zoo? A zoo?
Oh,
That was why I had everyone say at the beginning, we made
About
with
these
your voice
minutes.
so they could understand in the
okay.
position.
We need to approve these.
Oh, yes, sorry, yes. The ones in between those two dates have previously been approved.
But thank you.
We need to approve the 2 sets of meeting minutes that
So, okay, I guess I've got a few minutes also. Alright, so we have I'll just go top to bottom. We approve the meeting minutes for August 8th. Attendance was Elaine, Brendan, Wayne, Alan, I was absent, Rob was absent. Bob, I'm sorry.
I make a motion that we accept the minutes of August 8th.
Second motion.
All in favor?
Yes, Brendan.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes, Wayne votes yes. And Bob and I abstain, we were not here. Alright,
And I make a motion to accept the minutes of September 26th.
and attendance was myself, Wayne, Rob, Brendan, Elaine was absent. So,
Second motion.
all in favor?
Abstain.
Okay,
Aye.
Yes.
Adam, yes?
okay. One quick question.
Yes, sir.
Now that we did Vincent Ave, is our engineer done any more with Vincent Ave? Vincent Ave, we still got that, we haven't approved the subdivision?
No, he hasn't come back with anything yet. We haven't received it. We just got the Peyton Place one and then the other one. We haven't got with the Form L for Vincent Street extensions. We haven't received it yet.
How long is it gonna take? It's been 2 years.
Well, he's not since we re-put it to the new engineer.
It's been a year since we did it.
Yeah, I don't know. I can reach out to him, but I don't
Yeah, it's,
know how long he takes.
We should.
we should, because it's making us look bad. Thank you.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Alright.